Wholesaling vacant land versus wholesaling single family houses. Which one's better? Guys, this is Ginn. In this video, we're basically going to have a debate, and I'm going to walk through a whiteboard and basically show you the pros and cons of wholesaling vacant land and wholesaling single family houses, so you can be educated and understand what the pluses are and what the minuses are. And at the end of the video, I'll give you my recommendation of which one I think's better, and then you can make a decision what's best for your business. But do me a favor, before we get started, make sure you smash that like button, you hit that subscribe notification button to continue to receive the best wholesaling videos on the internet today. So we're talking about wholesaling, and what I love about wholesaling is you can do single family homes and you can do vacant land. Honestly, you can wholesale anything in this world, but specifically we're going to talk about the two, and I'm going to be fair and unbiased, even though I am biased, but I am biased towards wholesaling. So I want to give you both. I think there's some real valid points here, and you can make your decision. So let's jump into it. So don't grade me on my drawings, you guys. I think I was a doctor in my previous life, but I am a wholesaler and I do understand this with 21 years experience. So I'm going to draw a simple chart and we'll walk through the pros and cons. So what we'll do is one side pros and the other side cons. And then what we'll do is single family residential on this side, and then we'll do vacant land on the bottom part. Actually, I'm eating into my space here. Vacant land. And guys, this will give you a good visual picture and you'll completely understand it. I love them both. Let's walk through the illustration. So let's start off with the easy stuff. There's more inventory in single family houses. Everybody agree with that? It's simple. There is a lot more built homes than there is vacant land for sale in the United States. That's a fact. So you have to understand that one. There's more buyers. Why? Think about this. Single family homes, anybody can live in them. And just for that fact alone, you're going to have a larger target audience. That's why single family houses is very attractive on this part, because anybody in America, if they have the funds or the ability to get a bank to give them a loan, can take this product. Not everybody wants a vacant piece of land, which leads us to our next one. This is a big one, huge one, financing. Bank's favorite thing in the world is to finance real estate so the bank can get their money out and secure their asset with a promissory note and a mortgage. And that way they really rarely ever get taken out. And so banks love to lend on it because they lend their money out and they secure an asset. Basically, if the homeowner doesn't pay them back, then they take it back. And so financing is really one of the major ones. I'm going to underline it in blue. And this will be important as we go through this. Now, the reality is a finished home is much more desirable. Think about it. You have a bigger pool of buyers. Like, people love stuff that's ready to go. So with that, you're just going to have more desirability on a single family home over a piece of vacant land. Here's another huge one. Cash flow. What do I mean by cash flow? When you have a piece of property with a home on it, commercial or residential, you can either rent it out, you can lease it, you can do short-term rentals, Airbnbs. It's endless what you can do with them. And so every month it produces cash. And when something produces cash, people get a return, and they're much more willing to exchange money for that asset in return to get the cash flow on it. On vacant land, there's very little, if none, cash flow because it takes time to develop it, and all the desirability is right in here because it's a finished product in a single family home. And then here's one of the things you got to understand. There's more distress in single family homes. Why? Think about this. Some of these homes in the United States are more than 100 years old. They're going to have deferred maintenance. They're going to have issues. Even though a person buys a home, it doesn't mean they understand how to fix it up. And if they have financial issues, they can't afford to hire a handyman or a contractor to fix it up. And that can force them in a situation where they absolutely have to sell. And you're always going to have this with real estate. And honestly, the more real estate they build in America, the better for us as wholesalers, because it's going to be more opportunities in all these areas, especially for distress. So let's talk about the cons of single family home. I know what you're going to say. Rick's going to put nothing on there. No. I said I would be fair and unbiased. Number one, valuations are very public, meaning there's so many free services to tell homeowners what their property is worth that they actually believe it. And honestly, a lot of these algorithm stuff with Zestimates, Trulio, Redfin, Realtor.com is people can just, with a click of the mouse, kind of figure out what the value of their house is. And that's made it much more problematic because before they kind of had an idea, but now they have an exact idea. And whether it's right or wrong, it's burnt in their mind. And it's a challenge with homeowners because they're not experts, but they think they know exactly what their property's for. And a lot of them don't understand you have to list it with a realtor. You have to fix it up to get that valuation. And so a lot of homeowners have a price stuck in their head. And with all these free tools, and it's only going to get worse, is they're always going to be an expert on what their home is worth. And that's one of the big problems with single family homes. Okay. There's more competition than ever. It's just a fact. Okay. I'm just giving you the facts on it. That doesn't mean, oh my God, I can't do it. There's too many people in there. I don't care about competition. I don't have competition. I have people that do what I do, and that's fine. And they have plenty of success. If you want to learn how to beat your competition, go over to freewholesaling.com. I teach you how to do that. I don't fear competition. I love when people tell me markets are saturated. There's always a deal to be had. But the reality is there's more people chasing single family houses than they are on vacant land. And that's a fact. Virtual market, it's harder. It's a fact, guys. I'm trying to be unbiased here. It's not impossible. I do it. We all do it. But the reality is if I'm in California and I'm investing in like Alabama, a lot of times you think deals are like really good because you're comparing it to your current market. The reality is you don't know the market, and it takes a learning curve. It can take up to 3 months to really understand a market. I've done this even in markets on the northern and extreme southern side of Florida, is because you're not in that market every day. You don't understand all the pricing and all the nuances of that market. And for that reason, it becomes much more challenging doing it virtually. Also, sometimes you got to get boots on the ground. You got to get someone to help you sign contracts. It's never been easier than today with mobile notaries and DocuSign and everything else, but it's still more challenging because you're dealing with the human aspect of physical appointments, walking cash buyers through it. And that's one of the challenges of scaling your business when doing it virtually. Now, it's doable, but I just want you to know the facts going into it. My next one of my favorites, the emotional attachment. Why? Listen, these are people's homes. The word home means home. Now, home should be what's in your heart, but the reality is most people look at their home like, I grew up there, I raised my kids there. There's a huge emotional attachment. Guys, we're never going to get rid of this. And it is somewhat of a blessing and a curse because I want to help people get through their emotional issues on it. But that emotional issues can lead to some distress issues. But that connection that they're losing, that home, that place they're most familiar with, is sometimes challenging in single family homes. And even though people need to fix a house that's in really bad shape, a lot of times they procrastinate because of the emotional attachment. You got to know the facts when you're dealing with single family homes. Tenants. Now, I'm trying to be objective about this. I love tenants because I think tenants create distress. Tenants can be difficult, especially when they stop paying the mortgage and they trash the properties. But the reality is tenants are difficult when you're trying to do a wholesale deal because they'll get in the way. A lot of times you got to evict them, you got to get them out. And for that reason, they're a pain in the butt. The only reason somebody has a tenant is to create cash flow. And once the tenants stop creating cash flow and they create a negative cash flow, they are a problem. We have to deal with them. A lot of the properties that my company buys has problematic tenants, and we specialize in solving them. It's not fun. You got to deal with a lot of issues. Sometimes you have to deal with squatters, and you got to know that with single family homes. Keep in mind, on a piece of land, they can't squat on it. Here's one of my favorite ones. Moving. Why is moving such a big deal? The reality is two of the biggest stressful events in people's life is basically when a loved one passed away and moving. So if we know moving is a huge issue, I've dealt with people who've been in houses 30, 40 years. Guys, it's a lot to have people move. And even though we get contracts and stuff, sometimes they get so emotionally wound up in the move, it's challenging. And sometimes we have to help them out with it. But getting people to move is a challenge in single family homes because it slows stuff down, and sometimes it can take 2 or 3 months for someone to even actually move out of the house. And you got to know that with single family homes. It is a fact. Moving is usually their biggest challenge, and it's one of the obstacles we always have to overcome on wholesaling single family houses. And then my last one, it's not a complaint. This is a fact. You're always going to deal with a ton of realtors. Everyone has a sister, aunt, brother, uncle, cousin, wife, husband that's a realtor. It just seems like everybody's a licensed realtor, and realtors understand their job is to help out homeowners. The problem is realtors do get in the way of wholesaling. It's kind of a Hatfield-McCoy situation. It's like a feud. I have no problems with the realtors, but realtors that don't understand what we do with wholesalers and don't understand why we want to buy the house and get it sold quickly because the house has problems, and realtors aren't most often trained with cash buyers and they don't know how to sell properties quickly. Realtors will get in your way on single family homes. There's just no way about it. I learned to deal with them. I'm never nasty. I'm super nice. But a lot of times when there's a realtor and their ego's stuck in there, I just move on until the homeowner makes a decision to work without them. Now, let's jump over to vacant land because this is fun. And I said I'm going to be completely unbiased. Now, one of my favorite parts about land is it's all cash. Occasionally there's a finance deal. These are on a bigger commercial plot of land or a giant apartment building. But for the most part, the land we're talking about individual parcels of land. How do you fund them? There is no financing. It's all cash. Why do I like all cash? It creates speed. Whenever you don't have to have the bank involved in a real estate transaction, the faster and easier it is. When a bank's involved, their number one job is to protect their liability, meaning they want to know what the worst downside is and can someone pay back, and what if the worst case scenario happens? Flood, storm, economic meltdown. So the bank's always going to protect their interest first. So if you can get rid of the bank, you can just focus on what the seller needs and what you need, and it's a much faster transaction. I love my favorite part. There's just no inspections for land. It doesn't mean you don't have a contingency period. It just means, what are you really inspecting? So when I contract a piece of land, I'm just getting it below value and trying to sell it to a cash buyer who thinks it's a great deal. I'm not inspecting it. I'm not doing soil samples. Honestly, the underwriting is always done by the cash buyer. I never get involved in it. Sometimes there's environmental issues, gopher tortoises, stuff like that. We deal with that in Florida. But for the most part, I really don't care about the inspection. I'm going to leave it up to cash buyer. And if you have a great cash buyers list, you'll know the areas where they can be problematic, and they'll tell you ahead of time before you do it. And the advantage of no inspection is it doesn't really tie you up. For virtual markets, honestly, vacant land is the perfect product when you want to do virtual investing. Why? Because you never ever physically go on an appointment. You never see the seller in person. You never meet with your cash buyer in person. Everything is literally done all over the phone. So you can use DocuSign. I mean, if you want to have a Zoom meeting, you can, but it's really not required. And so you don't have to go through a lot of the stuff you have to go through in single family homes. And for that reason, to be unbiased, vacant land dominates in virtual market investing. So the next one I talked on, it's going to be the opposite on the other one. Is just, there's no emotions involved in land. Nobody is emotionally charged on land. I know there's a few exceptions, but for the most part, they don't live on the land. They don't visit the land. And a lot of land I buy, the sellers haven't seen the land sometimes in 10, 20 years. All they know is what they paid for it and what you're going to pay for them. And a lot of times they're sometimes doubling, tripling their money. I don't care about that. I just care that I'm making a spread from what I'm buying it from the seller and what I'm selling it to my cash buyer for. So obviously there's no tenants, there's no move outs. I mean, land just goes so much faster. We talked about no physical appointments, no appointment. Do you know how much time that saves you? That's one of the downsides of single family homes, especially if you do it locally. Like the amount of time it physically takes to go look at property and evaluate it. Land is much, much clearer. And honestly, my last one, valuations are simple. Okay? I do an entire video on this, go into detail. Valuations are simple with land. They're not nearly as complex as single family because all the tools for the public valuations for people own their home, they have it with land. They're horribly inaccurate, and most people don't trust them anyways. So I find the valuations for land much simpler. Either people want to sell it for a certain price or they don't, and they're not emotionally attached to it. So let's talk about the cons of land, okay? The first one is there's less inventory, lower spreads. What do I mean by that? Well, when you first start out and you deal with individual tracts of lands, it's not uncommon to make 3 to 8K on a deal. Now, if I go up to single family homes, and I forgot to put in this, you can get much bigger spreads. So on average, a family one's going to be up around 10K plus, and usually you're going to be less than 10K on land. But remember, it's technically easier. So you can easily make up this with volume. So don't let this discourage you, but you need to know the facts when you deal with it. You're also going to have less cash buyers because remember, you have to have cash to buy these lands, and usually they're buying it to either flip it on you, or they're looking to develop a piece of property, or they're going to be land banking. And there's not as many investors nearly. Everybody wants to run to the single family homes. So they're going to have more of a specific appetite, and there's going to be less of them. So you have to spend more time cultivating to the cash buyers. Remember, there's two types of cash buyers. They're going to be developers or just regular land buyers. I try to stay away from the developers, especially if you're starting out. Now, as I'm brainstorming and my brain's operating, I'm looking where I can fill in the plugs here. And guys, let me know in the comments. We probably go all day on the pros and cons, but I'm just want you to understand so you can add these up. Now, one of the cons of single family homes, a lot of times the deposits are much higher, especially today. And then a lot of times you got to deal with a proof of funds. And it's becoming more challenging because people are getting educated and understanding. My realtor told me, he said, you got to have a 10% deposit and a proof of funds. When it comes to land, low to no deposits. And I don't think I'm ever asked for a a proof of funds. Note a little proof of funds on land versus single family homes. They pound you on it. And it doesn't mean you have to do it, guys. And honestly, if a seller is completely focused on your deposit, odds are they're most likely not a motivated seller. But I could go on all day on this. I just want you to get the understanding. I apologize for some of my handwriting here. I know it kind of went off there, but I'll move it over there. And what's my recommendation? If you obviously don't know me if you don't know it, I do both. Why? Because they work. You know why? Because it's wholesaling, baby. Anything you can wholesale and minimize your risk and make a healthy profit spread and help out individuals and sellers is a win in wholesaling. So look through this. It will give you a crash course in understanding. There's advantages to vacant, there's advantages to single family, and these are the cons. The problem I have is most people only show you this side, and you got to understand that side so you can get an educated view on what you're getting into. My recommendation is do both. I love them. They both actually work the same way. Land has its advantages, single family has its advantages. Let me know in the comments which one you're going to do. And guys, if you enjoyed this video and you got value from it, do me a favor, smash that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe notification button so you can continue to receive videos just like this so you can become the best wholesaler out there. Guys, this is Rick Ginn, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.